Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. This is Your Ukrainian One, and today we have several topics to discuss, actually. My name is Igor, and today I have whom?
Lyubov. Hello.
It's a pleasure to have a podcast together with Lyubov. She is always like a hurricane Lyubov. She's always like have a full mouth of discussion topics. Today we're gonna talk about some Russian propaganda, which is actually misleading and is not providing the proper information about the situation in Ukraine, about the war in Ukraine, and situation with the democracy in Ukraine. So, Lyubov, have you heard about fascism?
Oh, regarding Russian propaganda, it's always interesting because sometimes it seems that it is obvious that they are saying not just lies, some just things that you can't, it is impossible to believe them because it's absurd what they are saying, right? So sometimes it seems there is no need to discuss and to speak that is not true. But sometimes you can find an article on CBS News site and where they are saying that, yes, of course, Putin is lying, but we can't deny fascism and anti-Semitism past and present in Ukraine. And what? Okay, past, but present? Sorry, what?
This is kind of problematic because.
And you think that the normal, let's call it normal world understand, right? When they are speaking about bio-laboratories, it is obvious. It's not true, right? It is obvious. But sometimes.
No, it's obvious to you. Wait, it's not obvious for regular people because they just don't care pretty much about that situation, and they assume that in a big tech world there is a possibility. There is always a possibility, but they do not consider, they can evaluate, they do not consider the range of this possibility, and range of this possibility is quite low for having like bio-laboratories in Ukraine or something like that, and bringing up and trying to grow some battle birds, as I heard.
Yeah.
What? Excuse me, but
I'm sorry.
We directed half of our budget to grow some battle ducks. They are trained to attack ethnic Russian.
I have to correct you because if we translate the source, it is battle birds and reptiles.
And reptiles, amazing.
Yes, that are migrating between Ukraine and Russia. And
I'm just interested, I consider myself not a man, not a woman, but reptiloid. I'm actually reptiloid. Can I be considered by Russian government is the battle reptiloid who is going to destroy Russia or something like that?
You can be considered as anyone by Russian government if they need it, if they want.
Oh, that's true. That's true.
Yes, sometimes it is always crazy, and maybe it is made on purpose as much terrible thing you say in people is easier to believe, maybe because in general, and I think it is all over the world, people don't read more than a header. So you just read a header that there is some fascism in Ukraine, and people won't read this, 500 letters article, right? So maybe it is a problem in general. That's why it is so easy for Russian propaganda to, to invade all the media, all topics people are discussing, this beer laboratory, this fascism, and all of this shit,
I think you're overestimating Russian propaganda strengths, especially in Western media, because that article which we are talking about, let's add this into the description. Let people see that there is a conclusion that. There is basically 500 pages of analytics about Ukraine's past and Ukraine's present, partially. I think they were just playing on the, on the hype wave. They were trying to make it more spicy and involve some more audience and so on and so forth. But basically there are 500 pages, and in the end there is a conclusion that Ukraine is a democratic country and their president is actually ethnic Jewish, and more or less it's a democratic country with normal democracy as all Europe.
Okay, but
you were writing about the fascism and anti-Semitism.
No, I want to add, yes, you have a point that in general this article is not so harsh, but the header and was really, was about this fascism. And as I say, I don't think regular person will, analyze and think and dive deep into the topic. So that's why I think it is quite dangerous thing to do this. To write such kind of articles with such kind of headers. I wanted to ask you, because, we decided on the topic of our podcast, and I really asked myself, what is my favorite propaganda about Ukraine? And I couldn't choose in Russian.
You mean favorite disinformation or information?
Yes. Favorite, topic in general, whether they're saying about fascism, Bill Laboratory. They have a lot of myths about the World War II. That NATO is danger wants to attack Russia and all of this stuff. And I really couldn't choose my favorite, because as we are saying here, everything is so delicious, it's hard to choose. Can you choose, your, favorite one?
My choice is obvious. It's Nazism. It's like they claim that all Ukrainians are Nazis and government are Nazis. With ethnic Jew, but okay, fine, because it's absurd and it is so flat. It doesn't have any layers to that, and I think for most of the population of Russia, it is believable because they want to believe in that. They need something external to be kind of afraid of, to have a war
against
and so forth. And so-called denazification, which they have right now, it's actually killing just innocent locals, which were never thinking even about the separation of anything, of anyone. They were just living their lives and trying to build something good for their kids, basically. But no, Russia decided that they are Nazis. It is quite kind of controversial topic, actually. This is crazy. How Nazi are you? I consider myself 0% Nazi.
me as ethnic. It's questionable. Not okay. Let's say ethnic Armenian with Polish, Tatarian, and Ukrainian blood. It's hard to decide how Nazis, how much I am a Nazi.
You're definitely not a pure blood.
Yes. As they would say in Harry Potter, I am mud blood. Right?
You're just not mud blood. You are just like mud crazy.
Mud. The modest blood.
Yeah, I'm also like I'm more like Eastern European, as I know. I'm like partially Polish, partially Belarusian, and partially Latvian. Person. I don't know. My grandma was telling me that we had some Italians in our bloodline, but I'm sure she was just inspired by those Italian TV series, TV shows, which she was watching. Actually, she just like, oh, I
wanted it to be the truth, right?
She wanted to be Italian, so.
It's so interesting to think about it, because actually this topic that Ukrainians are fascists and Nazis, this topic has really deep roots, and actually this propaganda, this idea started from early 20th century. Because in the early 20th century, Hitler or Mussolini wasn't the one who wanted to spread that idea. This idea was spread all over the Europe, and in different parliaments, even in French parliaments, was Nazist or fascist parties. So it was spread. It was, popular at the moment, because it was the period when empires died. Austrian Empire, after the First World War, a lot of empires died, so people were looking for a new role, how to govern new made countries. So it was an idea as a communism, actually. So it was communism was as an idea on the table, that people were thinking how to manage their life and how to organize their countries in new way. They wanted to be far from monarchy as much as possible, and in different countries was different movements. It was around 1920s, 1930s. It was as an idea, and as we know, fascism, thanks to Hitler and Mussolini, and communism, thanks to Stalin. Now we know that it doesn't work, right? So
originally it wasn't that stigmatized.
Yes, it wasn't,
this
because
regime stigmatized itself by the doings of their followers, right?
Yes. Because it was like, so we don't want to have monarchy. What should we do next? How
we will create other perverted monarchy.
Yes, and it was a theory. It was a theory, right? So people didn't know these consequences that we know now. So it was easy to convince anyone that, Jewish are responsible for our poor living, and we have to get rid of them. Or it was easy to convince that only white race is, important.
It was superior.
yes, is superior, or if we are speaking about fascism, right? Or if we are speaking about communism, it was easy to spread this idea that everything is for everyone, yes, and everyone should be equal. But it is impossible. Yes.
It is
So
utopia.
because different
Utopia.
people have different needs, so it is important to remember that it is impossible to make everyone the same, right? So they didn't know 100 years ago that it won't work. I want to go back to this, where fascism started in Ukraine, right? So we did have these organizations, as in the different other, in Poland, in French, in Italy, in Europe in general. So we had these organizations, had these ideas too, and in the same time, Ukraine as a nation actually started to build in that time too. So people started to identify themselves as Ukrainians. It's a long story why, but maybe we'll cover it later. So they were looking for ideas how to what this country, new country, Ukraine, is supposed to be. And it was different ideas: communism, fascism, democracy, monarchy. It was different ideas, because even monarchy, we do have this in our sort of monarchy.
Let's say it briefly that Ukrainians started to identify themselves as Ukrainians in the beginning of 20th century just because they were suppressed before again by Russia.
Yeah, I would say it started in the middle of 19th century, but in the beginning of 20th century, it was more obvious, and more seeable, because a lot of literature was wrote. And
listen, please prove that I'm right, or tell me that I'm wrong. As I do understand, basically, Ukraine was established as a country way before Russia. There was the Kievan Rus.
It's really long.
And then there is no. Let's make it short. It's not. It's not
okay.
And then
just 1,000 years. Okay.
Yeah, and then several hundred years after that, some of the Ukrainians have separated and went to Moscow. Right? They established Moscow later on in time, and then it is started abusive son, which is Russia, started to attack mother is Ukraine, right?
Let's say in general you are right, on the high level. Of
it's
course,
very, very abstract, right? Yeah.
Yes, it is very abstract and really, really high level explanation. In general, you are right, because it wasn't just Ukrainians, and these people didn't consider themselves as Ukrainians. So it is really a huge topic, and I really think it is important to cover it. But in general, let's say Kyiv was established much earlier than Moscow. Let's go this way. Much earlier, when Kyiv Rus was separated and was, let's say, broken, I don't know, by Tatarians. Moscow didn't even exist.
It was just a regular territory. It was
yes. So yes, if we go just 1,000 years ago to Kyiv Rus and all this stuff, yes, you're right. But a lot of things we should cover and explain, because it's quite complicated story, let's say. What I wanted I just wanted to go back to this early centuries, and I wanted to say that this fascism, and it was in Ukraine too, but in different countries too. But about nations that you asked me, that Ukrainians started to build their nations in the middle of 19th century, but as Czechs, as Polish and other and French after the French Revolution, right? So it was a normal situation at that moment. Then First World War happened. Then Hitler came, right? So Bolshevikis, communism came, and Ukrainians. These organizations that we had, that Ukrainian nationalities, how to say it, organizations that wanted to establish Ukrainian nature, let's call it this way. They saw when Hitler attacked USSR, they saw this as an opportunity to make their own country.
To segregate from USSR.
Yes.
Which they never wanted to be a part of. I do remember some guys from Lviv were telling me the stories, like when Ukraine joined USSR and there was a revolution, and one of their activists came out to everybody and told them, okay, gentlemen, ladies and gentlemen, I congratulate you, we were fucking liberated. They were really unhappy about joining to USSR on the first place. Yes, so that's why they wanted to segregate, and they thought Hitler will beat Stalin, right? Hitler will win, and Hitler will make Ukraine possible, let's say, yes, as an independent country. So at first, some Ukrainians was on Hitler's side, as some Russians, as some Belarusians. Let's highlight that mostly Western part, right? As I do remember, it's mostly Westerners. Western Ukrainians were, kind of seeing an opportunity in this war to segregate. Mostly, but not just Western part, because this organization was spread in Kharkiv too, in even Donetsk. It was called Stalin back the day. So it was quite spread, but not just. Mostly was people from Lviv, from western part of Ukraine, but actually this western part of Ukraine, they wasn't a part of USSR, Soviet Ukrainian Republic. Western part of Ukraine. No. How is this possible? I really love this topic, so sorry. Just very in general, they didn't join because they were like they didn't want because they was a part of Poland. And after the Second World War, in Yalta in 1945, Stalin, Franklin Delano Roosevelt, and Churchill, they let's say made new map of Europe, and as Stalin's troops was in Poland, in Hungary, really spread it all over the Europe. He really could, his position, negotiation position was really, hard, let's say. I'm not sure I'm describing it correctly, I mean, in terms, but he could insist. And he joined Western Ukraine to Soviet Ukraine that was already there. So it was made after the World War. So nowadays, Ukraine was established after the Second World War. And actually, it is one more Russian propaganda that Ukraine wasn't exist until Lenin made it.
So,
That's
so
crazy. As I do remember from old original maps, Ukraine actually was bigger before joining USSR and this 1945 territory redistribution, because Kuban was original Ukrainian territory, as I do remember.
Yes, I don't remember exactly whole territories, but all parts of ethnic Ukrainian lands, let's say, was in different, belongs to different countries. So yes, our ethnic territory is much more bigger than that nowadays Ukraine.
So generally speaking, it was like a federation. Yeah, one nation was segregated for federal some districts, which were deciding which union they want to join. As I do understand, Westerners decided to join to make a union with Poland, and some part in the east decided to join that USSR.
Not exactly. Not
well,
exactly.
They didn't have an opportunity, right?
Yes, well, yes. No one decided. These lands was just a part of different countries. So part of these lands was a part of Russian Empire before World War I. Some parts was part of Poland, let's say, right? I don't know. Actually, I don't know how to say it.
Lithuanian, I guess.
Yeah. I don't remember. I don't know how to say it correctly in English. So these countries, as Austro-Ugarska Imperia, I don't know. Austro-Hungarian Empire. It was exist, right?
Austro-Hungarian Empire.
I guess. I hope it is correct translation. So this land just was parts of different countries, and then war started, and where everyone ended the war, so these territories, Poland, yes, it was as it was when the war ended. So who won this battle? They separated different countries. Czechoslovakia was established. So this part, no one thought, oh, it's Ukrainian ethnic land, or it is, I don't know, Slovakia ethnic land, or it's Polish ethnic land. No one made these borders of the new established states considering ethnic lands.
Local population. They were just, okay, this part goes there, this part goes there.
Yes.
Who cares what people think, and who cares what their state identity or national identity is? They just didn't care. They were just segregating territories. This is how we got the current sovereign borders of Ukraine as well, right?
Yes, as well, right? Because in our current borders, Stalin in Yalta just moved borders on the map as he just wanted to do. Just as he wanted Lviv to be part of Ukrainian Republic, Soviet Republic. He just wrote it. He just drew it on the map. That's it. Mm-hmm. Or Bukovina, even our Chernigivska district. Not Chernigivska, Chernivetska. Yes, so it wasn't part. For example, Ivano-Frankivsk wasn't part of Soviet.
I do remember, after this re-establishing the borders of Ukrainian Soviet Republic, Ukraine got smaller actually, because we had like way more land.
I can't say, I'm not sure in it, so I won't, prove it, because, as I said, ethnic lands, Ukrainians lived in different, on more lands, but we had what we had.
like it was a state of Ukraine, but it wasn't sovereign. It was just different districts, Ukrainian districts, which wanted to probably join some different parts or so on and so forth. It's actually very hard topic because Russians are trying to propagate actually the exact phrase that there wasn't such country as Ukraine. Well, I may say that when Ukraine was established, there wasn't such a person as Putin. Does it mean it exists? Coming back to actually to these points of propaganda of that historical topic of propaganda is irrelevant. Why? Because currently and always Ukraine is a sovereign state with distinguished and exact borders. There is no such thing as the historic. Let's expand borders of Russia because historically it was Russian land. No, right now it is a country with sovereign borders. Nobody can penetrate that. Nobody can move those borders because it is a country.
And what
they are
you
losing
just
it in this point, actually.
and what you're saying right now, that there is no such way as historical truth, right? That some historical lands, that's why we have to invade them and join these lands to us. All these points, what I wanted to say in the beginning, actually, this point that you just said, and the point about fascism and Nazism in Ukraine, what is interesting and strange when I'm thinking about it, I always come to conclusion that actually all this propaganda, all these statements was made by Stalin. It was established, these points, during his, how to say it, leadership, let's say it.
Reign. It was reign because
yes,
it was like a royalty kind of stuff. But
yes, I was looking for a word because it was he was like a monarch, but it's funny actually. And formally, Soviet Union that days during Stalin's rule, formally it was a president. But no one knows, even I don't remember his surname. Stalin was just a head of the Communist Party.
Seriously?
Yes.
This is something new. I haven't heard about it. There was a president. Gosh, such a useless gentleman. I think he was like he was feeling very, very.
He just existed on a paper. He just existed on the page.
I feel bad for that person, honestly. I feel bad.
So all this stuff about Nazism and historical lands and what we have joined started that days because when Stalin joined this western part of Ukraine to the rest Soviet Ukraine, let's say after the World War II, of course, in western part, it was a huge protest. Rebels were everywhere, and they just sent huge amount of KGB agents to western part to Ukraine just to erase all protest, all rebels. So that's why our Western Ukrainians still have a lot of memory in their families, how their grandfathers were, sacrificed themselves, how they fight for Ukrainian independence and how they were brutally killed by KGB agencies after the war. So actually this terror was happening up to his death. That's why our Western part really remember it, because they were joined later, and they still wanted, and they were still trying to fight against this huge machine, this huge terror machine.
Yeah, they weren't that easy suppressed.
So yes, so to explain this suppression, it was made a story that on the western part of Ukraine there are still fascism, and they have to erase fascism and Nazism in western part of Ukraine. And they made up this story about Stepan Bandera, who were actually in the German, I forgot the word, he was in German since 1941. He couldn't be a head of a leader of this fascism.
So he was a German.
In jail,
right?
in jail. Yes,
in
he
jail.
was in jail. Yes,
in Germany in jail, right?
Yes, he was in Germany in jail, so he couldn't be a leader of this movement after the World War, the Second World War, during this war. But he was a leader before. So they just took this surname and they just spreaded propaganda that in the western part of Ukraine there are a lot of fascism and Bandera is their leader. Actually, I don't remember in what country Soviet KGB agency killed Bandera. I don't remember, somewhere in Europe. So he didn't even visit Ukraine after this. So
he was blamed in fascism, but he never been in Soviet Ukraine, right?
Yes, technically yes.
Jeez. So they needed a name, they just picked one.
Yes, they just needed a name. It was widespread name. On western part, they just took this. He was a leader. He had this organization, but he was caught, as I remember, in 1941 by German Nazi, and he was imprisoned in Germany, and he obviously couldn't do anything. But he fought against Bolsheviki, against Soviet soldiers, and he was the leader of this organization.
So before the war,
yes,
he was the leader of this. But
on the beginning,
he was in jail, so he couldn't. But then the propaganda, Soviet propaganda, has started that there is a Stepan Bandera who is trying to. So after the war, he wasn't even in Ukraine. He was in jail. And he never returned because he was taken by Soviet KGB agents or whoever was there. I'm not sure who was there. Honestly, I would like to add a disclaimer that I would speak about myself. I'm personally not a historian, and all I know about the history is from the books which were given me in school. So I'm not sure pretty much about some facts which I'm telling. End of disclaimer.
Yes, my disclaimer will be that I'm not a historian too. I don't have the education in this sphere, but I do love history very much, and I actually, starting from 2014, I realized that actually I don't know a lot. I realized that I've never heard about Crimean Tatarians. I was shocked that it is ethnic group in Ukraine, but I don't know about them. I didn't know even they exist, So I realized that there is some there is something that I don't know, and I started to dig a lot, and I read a lot of it, and actually, I can say that starting from 2014, it was a huge renaissance for Ukrainian historians. A lot of books were written, a lot of research were done, and a lot of new things were opened, let's say. So it is really interesting for me. Where I don't know, I will say I don't know. Where I'm not sure, I will say that I'm not sure. Thankfully, I do have good memory for digits. That's why I do remember some years. That's it. so yes. So the thing is that this propaganda that was made during Stalin rules still exists. Maybe back then they had some background on it, yes, because this popularity of Nazism and fascism for them, yes, in middle 1950s, it was not so long time ago. So that time it was more logical, right, to make this propaganda, and maybe even some fascism and Nazism did exist. I don't know, because it was really a long time ago. But right now it is irrelevant.
Well,
but
there are
Russia,
still people in Russia who are praising Stalin. There are still people who think that is a great leader who
how they say effective manager, they say.
Well, probably he was effective manager.
Yes,
but you had to be like fully psychotic, I guess, to psychopathic. You have to be a full psychopath to send so many people to repressions, to some camps, concentration camps, because they had in Soviet Union after Second World War, they had so-called concentration camps, as I do understand, where they were sending the elite who was against this this regime of Soviet. Right? Do I understand correctly? Do I remember?
Yes, they had a lot of camps, and actually, it was a huge terror. As I said, as Russians said that Stalin was effective manager, and we can agree because he really effectively managed to kill 100 million people, I guess, because
everybody, every person who was worth listening to, or something like that, who was worth reading about, and so on and so forth. So I think he targeted mostly the intelligent people, right?
Yeah, it was first repressions against intelligent people. Yes.
Especially they took a lot of Ukrainian intelligence, intelligent people who were writing and speaking Ukrainian. That was kind of the suppression of Ukrainian language. It is a part of the history.
I don't want to make this misunderstanding. One more disclaimer. I want to say that we are speaking about Ukraine because we know more about our country. But different countries, different ethnic groups were suppressed as well. Maybe just because in Ukraine, population of Ukraine is bigger, so this terrible. This crime is more in digits, because even during Holodomor from 1932-33, just 1 year, there is a range, because historians are discussing, and they established a range that during Holodomor was killed from 1.5 to 9 million people in Ukraine.
Could you
were
explain me
starved.
what is Holodomor? Because all I heard about the Holodomor that it is like artificially created hunger to suppress and to oppress Ukrainian people. Is this right or wrong?
Yes, it is correct.
So they were taking all of the crops from Ukraine just to make people die of hunger because what? How do they justify it?
Justify? They just said that it wasn't exist.
How did they justify
that?
No, I mean, how did they justify why are they taking crops from Ukraine and not leaving anything for people to eat?
They didn't have to justify, they just make this order. As I remember, I'm not sure here, as I remember, they actually, all these crops, and they even took, Soviet authorities, they took not just crops and different kinds of food from regular people. It was bad harvest few years, so the harvest wasn't so good, just as it was, but it was a planning economy. Maybe you will correct me with terms. So misunderstanding. Soviet Union and Russia is different. So Soviet established this 5-year plan. And during these 5 years, they had some I don't know how
to meet. So they were supposed to supply this much of grain, for example, wheat, to the main storage facility of USSR.
Yes. So, for example, I don't remember exactly, but for example, first year they didn't meet their norms, right? So, but Stalin said, I know nothing. Just do what I said. You have to double this norm next year. And farmers had to plant everything they had. They didn't make any they didn't reserved anything.
They didn't there wasn't anything left in stock for them to eat. As I do understand, when they collect the crop, part of the crop, they, for example, grain, any kind of grain, part of the crop they reserve, they save for their for further growing, and part of the crop they save for them to eat, actually, to have some bread and so on and so forth.
Yes.
So they basically used all of the grains, like we were telling before. They saved something for food and something for further growing, further development, and they had to use all of it. They didn't leave anything for them to eat, because they needed to grow more, because Stalin has increased the amount of grain they had to provide to general stock.
Then, when it didn't work, they started to take what people, individual farmers just grow on their, backyard. Then
they started to take people's food, like which they were growing on their own land, because we had like big fields, which is
sorry, it's terrible topic, but thank you for being my explanator.
Yes. So they had like big fields, which purpose of which was to provide food for everybody, actually, for the country. And they had like a small garden, like a garden in near the house, which we're doing right now, or which we were doing right now. In modern days, like which is like you're growing some minor amount of fruits, vegetables, and grains for yourself, for your own consumption. So they started to take their crops from their garden area near their houses, right?
Yes, because Stalin said, "Give me this amount of crop," and they couldn't find it anywhere because the harvest
And there
didn't
were
give
special
enough.
people who were coming, like let's say from Stalin, from USSR,
Yes,
who were
yes.
collecting this food. So this
Oh,
wouldn't like they didn't give this food their own food voluntarily. Their food was taken from them actually.
And sometimes even people were killed, and people were starving, and it was a law of, I don't know how to say it, Kolosov law.
Strain of wheat.
Okay, yeah, let's one strain of. It was a law about 3 wheats. So it was a law when if you are caught when you are stealing wheat from the huge plant, you can be shot. It was a law.
So they were shooting people who were stealing the food because they were starving.
Yes.
So the starvation was the first thing. Then comes the law that you may not steal because you are starving and everybody around you is starving. This is extreme.
And I heard interesting story of there is one Russian blogger and comic. He's comic, and he Danila Poperechny, maybe you heard of him, that he had family in Kiev, and it was some period of his childhood that he went to one of Kiev's school when he was in teens, I guess. Okay, he was younger. So, and he said the story when he came to historical class in Kiev, and it was a topic about Holodomor, and obviously all of his classmates were staring at him and with questions. So what do you think about it? And he said, "I'm sorry, but in Russia we don't have it in no one's
curriculum.
Yeah, we don't have it in school curriculum. They just don't learn about it."
Amazing. So of course,
Nice.
like it is like policy. I don't see it, so it doesn't exist.
Yeah.
Of course, they will tell that it never existed because they were never taught that it existed. They never knew that it existed, and we all know how censorship worked in USSR and afterwards in Russia. So history books can be rewritten as much as it is needed, and facts may be perverted, and so on and so forth. As long as you have evidence, you can trust the source. In Ukraine, there are a lot of evidences. There are very lot of evidences of this happening, of this Holodomor. So we tend to believe in this fact. We tend to, because it is proven. Like we don't need to believe in this fact actually, because it is scientifically proven. There are written evidences, even some pictures from that time, and a lot of information available on government websites and on Ukrainian history websites, which are available online. You just need to type Holodomor and read about this. This will be quite eye-opening for people who never knew about this, who never heard about this. It is actually as a good detective or a good horror story because it is really real and it happened at that time.
Yeah, as I mentioned the book Bloody Land by Timothy Snyder in previous episodes. So again, this book describes Holodomor too. So you can find it on English. And as I said in last episode, I couldn't read this book till the end. So now maybe you understand why, because it's really it was hard to read.
So, and this Holodomor, it was just one example of USSR and Russian oppression of Ukrainian population. One of like millions. There are thousands of examples on how Ukrainian population was suppressed in all of this, and how Ukrainians were fighting for their freedom. This is again the history repeating. We are again fighting for our freedom. We are again fighting for our democracy, and again we have to prove to us, to neighboring countries, to all the world that Ukraine is like that Ukraine is an independent state, that Ukraine is capable of protecting itself, that Ukrainians are united as the nation, that Ukrainians have national identity. Because before this war, this current war, it seemed like we didn't have any identity on the international area, on the international field of
Mm-hmm. I agree. Just one correction. We are not fighting again. We are still fighting. Let's say we are still fighting.
Well, yes. Obviously that this war is going like for a long time already, but there were some time of peace. There was some time of peace, some time of fighting again, then again some time of peaceful relations between
suppression fighting.
Yeah, and it seems like Russia cannot swallow us. It just tries to bite. It gets its teeth broken, and it retreats. And again, it tries to bite. It gets its teeth broken. It retreats. Unbelievable. Why would they learn about Ukrainian history like Russian guys are telling that Ukraine never existed, then Ukraine was established by Lenin, and so on and so forth. It's funny. Why they don't learn from history that you don't try to bite what you cannot chew? You were trying so much to chew Ukraine, but you never could. It never happened. They couldn't suppress Ukraine. They couldn't remove Ukraine from the world map. Why don't you mind your own fucking business and don't touch us? Let us live normal life.
I think that they this propaganda, they have so deep these roots in propaganda, so they are believing in it. So they so many times repeated this absurd that they believe in it.
But it seems delusional. People don't want to have anything in common with Russia. I can tell right now 100% of people do not want to have anything in common with Russia. We want to be a separate country. Why do they think that they are helping us? There's a narrative in propaganda that we are saving local population. No, you are not. You are killing local population. Come on, guys. This is like black is white and white is black. It's crazy.
As I asked you, what is your favorite propaganda topic, and now I'm thinking about it, and my favorite, let's say, if we are choosing it, oh my God. So they claims that they are saving Ukraine. Come on, guys, why don't you save North Korea? Why don't you save Cuba? I don't know. Why don't save us?
I dare you. Try to save. Please try to save North Korea. There is a local population who is Russian-speaking population. They've been oppressed in North Korea.
It's just unbelievable. Seriously, they have always been living in the past. So, and they still live. I don't know. It's hard to choose the exact century, but they definitely are not living in 21st century. They just, show up, and that's it. That's everything they can do. And actually, one more interesting thing, this, imperial ambitions that they always had, I guess. The World War II, maybe you will help me with this translation. Actually, it's not the World War II in Russia, and it was a thing in Ukraine too, in all post-Soviet countries. And we never started that the war started in 1939 and ended in 1945. At school, actually, we learned that the war started in 1941. And we learned it as, how to say it, Вітчизняна війна. It wasn't a whole world war. It wasn't. It was.
Yes, we were taught about it as the Great Patriotic War.
Mm-hmm,
so it considers the time period when Soviet Union joined. Actually, when Soviet Union was involved in the war. So it's from 1941 to 1945. Before that, like 1939. Yes, it's when the World War started. Nothing like
it didn't count, and you know why? Because actually, I can be it can sound controversial, but actually, Hitler invaded Poland from one side, and Stalin invaded Poland from the other side. So actually, the war, they both started this war in 1939. And the pact,
I can neither prove or disapprove this fact. I have no idea about this invasion. I know that Hitler has invaded Poland, but I didn't know that.
Yeah, we know about it as in our language. It sounds like Pact Molotova-Ribbentrop, but in Europe it sounds like Hitler-Stalin agreement.
And different names even in
yes, because we were still learning in post-Soviet schools, so our curriculum wasn't changed and it wasn't made a lot of researches.
So they changed the name so it wouldn't sound like this Stalin has reached any agreement with Hitler.
Even this Pact Molotova-Ribbentrop, even this thing was hiding a lot of years. So we learned it at school, but not so deep. That, for example, Molotov and Ribbentrop, they wanted. They made an agreement, and then Hitler betrayed it. Stalin.
So no details. It's like there was an agreement. It doesn't matter what was in that. You just know it.
What? Never. It doesn't matter. What agreement? What was in that agreement? Never mind.
This is funny, kind of like it's a small manipulation of the fact, but it changes the game a lot, because in this narrative, Stalin and Hitler never made any agreements, because somebody called Molotov and somebody called Ribbentrop, it's a surname, made it, but not Stalin and Hitler. It's interesting. I never knew about that.
Yeah, I got to know about it. One Ukrainian journalist, he told the story. He was in Germany, and it was some press conference by Angela Merkel, and he asked something. He didn't know even this translation, so I don't remember the specific question, but this question contained Molotov and Ribbentrop, so this pact. So he asked, and he's saying that I hear how translator translates my question and says Hitler-Stalin agreement. And he saw how Merkel, her face changed a lot, because definitely for them, they are trying to, to leave this past behind. So every time they hear this
Hitler
name,
stuff,
yes. So I got to know about it from our journalist, Ukrainian journalist Skrepin. Maybe you didn't know.
I think this is what's going to happen to Russians. Of course, they are right now. Lots of them are proud of Putin and so on and so forth. But I think that his name gonna be banned from history. Like they will trying to avoid any attempts to remember this name because of what is going on in Ukraine and what are his policies.
And somehow they decided to erase, I don't know, or to change the meaning, I don't know how to say it, from one Latin letter. Can't you, does anyone have any clue why is it that? And what does it mean? In Russia they make it flash mob where kids in kindergarten, how to say it correctly? I confused languages. Sorry. Ballet dancers they make this that sound to show that they support their president, but I'm sure don't know the meaning, and I don't think there is any meaning. In swastika, it was some meaning, right? So it was like this sign had a story and had a meaning, but what does that mean?
Nothing.
Nothing. Just a letter, and right now I can't see this letter anywhere because it always reminds me.
They will find the meaning, but
they will make it.
The same as this letter, swastika was never a bad sign.
Yeah.
Until bad people started to use it. Which is right now you just cannot use swastika as the magical sign because it's like related to Hitler somehow, which is shame. Same with this letter. This letter wasn't evil before it was villainized by this Putin and so on.
They just they make it propaganda as a masterpiece. Somehow they can reborn Stalin's narratives. Somehow they can hide real agreements. Somehow they can just destroy the letter. Somehow why they decided NATO is make some danger for Russia, I can't understand. No, I mean, I know that it started from Cold War, yes, but actually it
But
was
right now
ended.
is a different time, and
it was ended.
I don't see NATO as and I think as most of the civilized world doesn't see NATO as the aggressive union first. It is union for protection. Why wouldn't we all join NATO and not attack each other? This would be way easier than freaking fighting against NATO and so on and so forth. Because this is the alliance for peace. This is alliance for protection, not attacking Russia. And I don't understand why their narrative involves NATO, because NATO wasn't a threat anyhow to Russia. It was never a threat to Russia. They are not threat to Russia right now when Russia is talking about nuking European countries. They are keeping silent, and they are just like, oh, okay, he tells that he's gonna nuke us if he will decide to. He will be like.
And it's quite funny to watch how NATO says that we don't want to provoke Putin, and we don't want him to consider that we are in this war. But hey, guys. They don't need and don't wait for any provocation. They will do it by themselves. They just will make up any story as they did with us.
Yeah,
they already made up all the stories. So what, Ukrainian did something to provoke their attacking? Or what?
No, Ukraine didn't do anything.
Why? It's, I don't know, maybe it's some naive, maybe it is actually naive, but Western world don't understand that that they still are dealing with that unlogical, I don't know, Soviet paranoid people. They don't need any.
Why would they need to deal with this Soviet paranoid people unless they are being inside of their country and not attacking any NATO countries? They don't see the need actually to deal with him.
And as long as they have gas and oil, right?
Well, yeah, but they are right now, as I understood, NATO is researching the opportunity, not NATO, but European countries. Is researching some opportunities for stocking their storages, their gas storages, their petroleum storages from alternative ways, alternative countries to Russia. And as I do understand, they are being successful. So energetic dependence and energy carrier dependency from Russia is just a myth, actually, for now, already. Because they pulled themselves together, they tried to find the alternatives to Russian supply, to Russian supplied energy carriers, and they found it. They can deal with it. So we'll see how this situation will resolve. Of course, it involves a lot of diplomacy and a lot of talking around different problems. Me as Ukrainian, I do not understand why so much talking. There are a lot of countries which are helping Ukraine, and they are true friends. Like, honestly, there are a lot of countries which are helping Ukraine in all the possible ways which they can provide.
And that is incredible.
That is, I'm like personally, I am as Ukrainian, I'm extremely grateful to them.
The same here, the
Honestly,
same.
I never thought that I'm gonna feel grateful for other country providing help to my country. Honestly, but right now I'm like, oh my God, thank you, friends, brothers, forever, and so on and so forth. This is so like pleasing moments when you read news and tell like Great Britain is going to provide that country is ready to invite the temporary displaced people from Ukraine to their countries without any requirements, like there's no visa, nothing required.
And as I was the one who was crossing the border, so as a refugee, I was crossing the border, and this help of these volunteers is just incredible, and they're doing so a lot. It's just we really my sister and I we just was on the border, and we just staring and crying, because people were so kind and so helpful.
I never knew that I will gonna know this level of gratitude to people. Actually, it's very pleasant to feel. It's very like. It is very nice feeling. Honestly, I cannot even describe this.
It's when you can really believe in humanity,
Yes. So, all of the countries which are around Ukraine, except for two, are extremely kind to Ukrainians. Why these evil twins? I talk about Russia and Belarusian government.
Belarus, yes.
Yeah, because we all know that Belarus and its government are different things. People are
according to Belarus,
is crazy. Why they are being mean to Ukraine? Like if we are talking like in terms of just regular kids. This
strange that I said, these strange imperialistic ambitions that they still have, and that I told about World War II. Yes, as you said, patriotic wars, a great patriotic war. So they always celebrated the victory on 9th of May. And they always say that we can repeat it, meaning that we can go to Berlin and win again. But you know what? Actually, I had to correct myself from the previous episode. I said that in Chuhuyev, they had 5 attempts, Ukrainian 5 times in Chuhuyev airport destroyed.
It doesn't matter. Let's leave it.
It wasn't. It is really important because it wasn't Chuhuyev and it was Chernobyevka, where they brought all the vehicles. Ukrainian shooted everything, bombed everything, and Russian again brought their vehicles. Ukrainians again shooted everything. Russians. So for now, it is 8 times. Okay. For now, they did it 8 times. They are bringing their vehicle to that airport, and Ukraine are shooting it. So now it is understandable what they meant when they say we can repeat.
You mean in terms of repetition? Yeah. I think that that saying that they can repeat the war, they can like overcome fascism again. I think that is more a prerogative of marginalized strata of their society. I don't think that people who actually like thinking people, the people who can read and properly write and analyze the facts would like to repeat any of the wars.
But as we know, even if they have any thinking people, the amount of this, it's not enough. The amount of these people is not enough, because if they would have enough thinking people, I wouldn't be an Ukrainian refugee right now.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. If most of the people would want actually to analyze the facts which are provided by their TV. Their propaganda is going through their TV, and TV is still the source for majority of population, the only source of information. Most of them don't use internet. They wouldn't be so glad to have this war with Ukraine. They wouldn't support their government so much and think that it is like a best government ever, because lots of people, while they are not having any money to pay for their utilities in their apartment, they still believe that Putin and his government are the best, and they fully support them. And I'm telling, like, they don't have enough money to pay for the utilities in their apartment, meaning that they are working full-time. They are working like full-time, 40 hours a week, sometimes even more, and they still cannot ensure the execution of the required payments for their living, basic payments, which is actually horrible. So I don't.
Yes.
There was such a narrative from Russians that it is better for people who are retired to live in Russia. But I know a lot of people who are retired in Ukraine, and all of them are subsidized. All of them are having enough money to pay for their utilities, to pay for their food, and to live more or less fine life.
Yeah. Okay. Let's be clear, because in Ukrainian people who have the pension in Ukraine is not so good, let's say. So we have a lot of problems with it too. But as we said before, Ukrainians know how to live and how to survive, and we really do have support for that people. But we do have some problems with it too, so let's be clear with it too, because now we sounds like propaganda.
I don't see the problem actually, because we are talking about Russian propaganda, right?
Yeah, no, I meant Ukrainian is so. As you are a cut master, I can't do anything with it.
I will cut it out. This is honestly, the only counteraction to propaganda is not even truth, is even worse propaganda, which can be imagined. How good that our government is remaining democratic and keeping the freedom of speech for all of people around Ukraine. This is true. You may ask any Ukrainian who is there. You can always say that our presidents suck. or out loud everywhere, or go for protests against some injustice. This is like a national. This is in culture. We're like good protesters.
Yeah, we
have
actually.
very exact feeling of injustice. We are not just protesting, we are protesting against injustice. And main point that most of the times our government hears us and executes our demands. This is what democracy means. This is a real democratic country.
And in case if our government doesn't hear us, this government go to Rostov.
Yes, they flee country. They flee country and just. We're a good country. We just weren't lucky enough with our neighbors, actually.
We weren't lucky enough with our eastern neighbor.
Neighbors, yes.
Yeah, but we see how lucky we are with our western neighbors.
Yeah, this is truly miraculous. This is truly miraculous situation. Actually, I would prefer to call it like this. In terms of our western neighboring countries and our western friends, which is actually very nice to have such friends, and for them to have such friends as Ukraine as well.
Well, what is sad, because with all this, my passion to history, with all this knowledge and insights, yes, from Ukraine, with all this knowledge about Russia and understanding the mentality, because we grew up on this, let's say, transformation from Soviet to non-Soviet country. We were growing during this time, so I can explain a lot. But the one thing I still can't understand, and that is, I guess, the most sad thing for me, I don't understand why is it happening? Why this war is happening?
Because fuck you, that's why.
Okay.
I think that the only thing everybody need to understand that this is happening. Why?
As my English teacher at school said, why, Inna Petrovna, why? She turns out and says, because.
Because.
Just because.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, that's sad. But
we're gonna win.
We're gonna win. But Russia made the best thing that it could make to start the process of destroying itself. So thank you.
Yeah. They really started self-destruction.
They made it by themselves. Yeah. So
I still believe that there are some people who actually think, and I still refuse to dehumanize some part of Russians. Not all of the Russians, but some part of Russians.
I still can't humanize them because bombs were falling on my city.
Firing.
Because so I can't humanize them. Maybe someday I will. I do, and actually it's strange because I do realize that it's not normal. It's not normal.
Yeah, it is.
I do understand that it's not normal to want some people to die. It's not normal, but war is not normal too. It's not normal to kill a lot of civilians, to kill people in general in my country just because they wanted to do it without any normal explanation without any anything we
Adequate, I would say. Same.
It's so maybe someday I will I will be able to humanize Russians, but right now it's sorry. Not my case.
You are not human
Not my
anymore.
cup of tea. Yeah.
Excluded from humanity. Well, I really hope that there are some thinking Russians who are able to resist the propaganda floods and so on and so forth. Well, we love humanity. We love our listeners. I hope our listeners love us as well. We're trying to keep these talks as much entertaining and as much soothing as it is possible. What is the word of the day, Lyubov?
Yes, and I wanted to ask our subscribers and listeners to write a comment down below. Maybe there are some topics that you want us to discuss, that you're interested in. So please feel free to ask us to write down what you think about these topics, our topics, and what maybe you want us something to discuss. And today, Ukrainian word of the day is svoboda.
Freedom, right?
Yes. Svoboda. Svoboda. Yes. That is really amazing Ukrainian word. So thank you everyone who are listening to us. Please like our podcast. Please subscribe to our channel. And in the description box down below, you will find some links to donation funds where you can donate to different Ukrainian funds who are helping to army, to civilians, and even to animals in Ukraine. So please consider to be part of our community. Thank you and bye-bye.
Bye, guys. We love you. Bye.